that make you feel? Giving a child his freedom.
Felt good.
You have been at this for 12 years.
Well, good day, guys. Johan Besser here from Charisma Performing Arts. Welcome to the channel. Thanks for clicking on the video. Please subscribe if you haven't already. I'd really appreciate it. And today I'm obviously going to talk about something briefly, which is not a usual topic on this channel, because we are, of course, all about the human voice. Anything that has to do with the human voice, especially singing and singing competitions and analyzing singers and teaching about how to use our voice more effectively. But today, I wanted to just bring your attention to a new film called The Sound of Freedom. And if you've never heard of it, then I'm so glad that you are watching this right now. Because what I'm finding is, in my daily whereabouts, as I bump into people and bring it up, still many people say, "What? What is that?" Or they say, "Oh, I've heard something, but I don't really know what it is." And I just feel so strongly about the subject matter, the topic, the thing, the evil that this film is exposing, that I just wanted to quickly share that with you, my audience.
My country, 'tis of thee.
Why are you doing it?
Sweet land of liberty.
Because God's children are not for sale.
So I'm going to tell you everything I know. Not everything. I'm going to tell you a bunch of things I know, as if you've never heard of it before. First thing is that this film, The Sound of Freedom, is the true story of a man named Tim Ballard, a US citizen who used to work in Special Forces, CIA, and then Homeland Security and whatever. And then this thing of child trafficking, this massive issue, just grabbed his heart in a way that made him quit his job with the US government. And he founded Operation Underground Railroad to try and rescue children from trafficking. And the film is about him, his life, his team, his organization, the way they do things. It is an action-packed, brilliantly made film, apparently, according to all reviews. So it's a real film. It's not a documentary. It's an action thriller film, but it is a true story. And when Tim Ballard was asked by the initial producers who he would like to play his character in the movie, he said, without hesitation, Jim Caviezel. Now, you might know about Jim Caviezel from The Passion of the Christ and more recently The Count of Monte Cristo. He's a celebrated actor. I like him as an actor a lot. I think he's a brilliant actor. I like him as a human a lot because of what he stands for. But anyway, so Tim had no hesitation. And when they called Jim Caviezel, he had no hesitation to say, I'm in, before too much conversation or didn't need any convincing. Just jumped in. So if you're like me, then maybe you knew or you've heard of children getting lost and children getting stolen and, trafficked all over the world for things. But for me, it was always something that was so in the back of my mind that I hardly ever thought about it. And once in a while, when you hear about a child that has gone lost, then you go, oh, wow, that's really terrible because, this is not a good thing. And maybe you have your own children and you feel an emotional thing when you hear something like that. But what this film really did and is doing, is making us aware of what a horrific business this is. There are roughly 2 million children getting stolen every year. And it is roughly a $150 billion industry per year. It has it has surpassed the illegal illegal weapons trade industry. And it's soon going to surpass the illegal drugs industry worldwide. I mean, that should shock anyone. Because who would have thought? And by the way, these figures obviously cannot be precise. They are probably conservative figures, so it could be more than that. Now, the shocking thing that I've also learned by just reading about and looking at interviews and whatever, the movie and the whole story, is that some of these kids are trafficked for sexual exploitation purposes. Now, that is, in my view, one of the most evil things that can happen on the planet. But that's the only thing that I thought it was. But then I found out that some of the kids are also trafficked to perform child labor. It's actually people in the world who pay for kids to come and do horrible, hard labor for them for no money or very cheap. But the worst is that I found out that some kids are sold to people who harvest their organs. Yep. There are traditional healers and all sorts of spiritual things going on where people say that certain organs of young children have certain magical powers and medicinal qualities and stuff. So, sex trafficking, child labor, and organ harvesting. All those things are just horrific evils, in my opinion.
So you quit your job and you go and rescue those kids.
So you might be aware, especially if you live in the United States, that this film started playing in cinemas, movie cinemas, across the United States on the 4th of July. And the interesting thing is, I've seen so many shorts of fans who went to see the film and seen reports on it by different independent news outlets and channels like the Daily Wire and others, Fox News, who gave accounts of what happened when people went to see the movie. Oftentimes, people were told, oh, look, we're going to refund you, the movie's not playing, for no apparent reason. Other times, people were sitting in the cinemas and the lights never turned off. The lights stayed on for the entire movie, which is highly irregular. I mean, obviously. Other times, many times, the cinema group just said, oh, sorry, the air conditioning isn't working, so we don't want you to sweat, so we're not going to play the film. And then people would just insist and say, no, we'll watch the film even if it's blazingly hot, which is also highly irregular. Other times there's been emergency evacuations in the middle of the movie, where apparently there's no emergency and nobody else is being evacuated. So that does raise a question. Why would anyone, doesn't matter what your political persuasion, your race, your ethnicity, the culture that you live in, your religion or no religion, your sexual orientation, it doesn't matter what your beliefs are. How could any human being want to stop this message from getting out? I don't understand it. And it begs the question, are there people who don't want this information to get out? Are they maybe high-profile people? Are they maybe famous or super wealthy or in control of a lot of things in the world with all the money and the influence that they have, and they don't want people to know that they are maybe involved in some way in this? I mean, don't take my word for it. Just go and do some searches and you'll find a lot of stuff that has been coming up. A lot of Hollywood actors, very prominent people like Mel Gibson and Mark Wahlberg and others who've come out and said, look, I've seen some things in my career and in Hollywood that really concerns me and that makes me think that there are rich or famous people who don't want this kind of information to get out into the world.
It's all rebel territory. No one goes in.
What if this was your daughter?
So, she's gone.
What can you and I do as a normal person with a heart that beats with real blood and with a heart that just is human towards other people? So what you and I can do, and what we should do, I believe, is number one, go and watch the film. One of the best ways to help put a stop to this horrific worldwide absolute evil is to watch the film. Because all the money they raise from the film, which by the way they did on a budget of something like $13 or $14 million, which is absolutely unheard of. But all the money they make, they are going to put towards growing their organizations and fighting this thing even harder worldwide and going into more places, in more countries, on more continents on the earth. So go and see the film. In the United States, like I said, it's showing in theaters already. If you haven't seen it, please go to your local theater and go and watch it. Even if they don't want to turn on the AC, just watch the film. Then tell everybody about it, like I'm telling you now. I'm using my platform to share about this thing because I feel so strongly about it. Tell people about it. Thirdly, you can go to Angel Studios' website and make a financial contribution. Many of us are in a position where we can make a contribution. And don't think your $10 or your $50 is too small. If millions of people give small amounts, it still adds up to a lot of money that they can use to help combat this thing. In South Africa, my home country, I found out yesterday that the film will start screening here in South Africa on the 18th of August. So I'm going to tell everybody to go and see it, and I'm going to motivate people, and I'm definitely going to go and see it myself, obviously. And then I will put some links in the description of one or two websites that advertise the release dates in other parts of the world. So go and see the movie. And then finally, I just want to say that you and I should not be naive and think that the disappearing children being stolen and sent across the world for all these different horrific kinds of things, that doesn't happen in our city or in our town or in our country. You should just spend a little bit of time and watch all the things that have come up, even just on YouTube. People's stories, now that this issue is so highlighted by this film. So many people are coming out and saying, hey, I was trafficked. This happened to me. And they tell their stories and how they lived in an upper middle class neighborhood, a safe, clean neighborhood where there's hardly ever any issues. We can't be naive. Things like big sports gatherings and big festivals and stuff like natural disasters or wars, wherever there's crowds of people or there's confusion and whatever, that's when these predators go in and they steal many, many children. So we should be vigilant as a community where you live, and as a society. We should be vigilant. We should look after the children. We should know where our children are. Not in a paranoid way, but we should be wise. And if you see any activity that you think is suspicious, when you see a house that is dodged and you see things, people moving in and out and suspicious vehicles or whatever, then report it to your local law enforcement. I think as the human race, all of us who don't have purely evil hearts, we should stand together and we should say, this thing ends. Nobody thought slavery could end, the slave trade, right? In the previous century. And the century before that. Nobody thought that could ever end. But it did, because enough people like you and I stood up and said, no, This is not happening while I have anything to say about it. But it's going to take millions and millions and millions of us to stand together to stop this horrific thing from happening. Thank you for spending the time with me. It's a bit of a heavy topic, but I've been pondering talking about this with you now for a few weeks, and I've decided I really want to do it. I feel convinced that I should, and I feel so passionate about this topic that I just wanted to send you this message. So until next time, take care of yourself, and let's all together take care of the children of the world who cannot fight for themselves.